Hey guys, Enders here, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are going over update 5.2. This update is not out yet. It is coming out next week, I believe on Tuesday. And this update is surprisingly filled with pretty important changes, particularly for the gunplay, some of the weapons in the game, some of the vehicles in the game. So without further ado, let's just jump right into things. If you enjoy the video, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. If you enjoy Battlefield in general, I stream every single day at twitch.tv/enders. First link in the description. Drop my channel a follow. And if you want to join in on the Discord and follow me on Twitter, those links are in the description as well. So, DICE starts this update off by saying that they have fulfilled their commitment and the promise they made to rework all of the base game launch maps. And yes, they are right. They have done that. We will have to see what this Hourglass rework actually plays like. With Hourglass, that's a tall order, I'm not gonna lie. That map is arguably one of the worst maps ever made. So I am particularly interested to see what they did with the way it plays. If you're interested in seeing a full before and after comparison of Hourglass after the update drops, I went ahead and took a bunch of screenshots for reference, and that video will be out after the update drops next week. Aside from the Hourglass rework, in Update 5.2, Vault weapons will be seeing some love, particularly SMGs and LMG Vault weapons. The weapons in question are the P90, AKS-74U, PP2000, M60E4, XM8 LMG, M240B, Type 88 LMG, and the RPK-74M. These weapons have all had their damage drop-off ranges, spread, recoil behavior, and accuracy tweaked to feel, quote, more consistent with all-out warfare counterparts as viable and competitive options. I will also be doing a full comparison video going over the stats of the old versions of these weapons, comparing them to the stats of the new versions of these weapons. So if you want to see that video, definitely subscribe to the channel as well. I am surprised to hear that they are making such drastic balance changes to these weapons so late into the game, but hopefully some of the worst Vault weapons in the game, such as the AKS-74U, see some massive damage model changes so they're actually viable to use. On top of all of those changes, the Vault weapon SMG, LMGs, and some of the Vault weapon sidearms are receiving all-out warfare attachments, just like they did with the Vault weapon ARs. So you'll be able to use these, for instance, BCG light grip on the AKS-74U now. And one of the last larger things to mention before we get into the patch notes themselves, DICE has finally added squad orders / the ability to lock and remove squads, and you can kick people from your squad. This should have been in the game at launch, no debate whatsoever. It's kind of a joke to see this being added now, but at least they're adding it, I guess. Now we're going to go over the patch notes for this update. Starting in the audio section, an interesting change to subsonic ammo types. Subsonic ammo will no longer have bullet crack sounds. And I can only assume this means when you're getting shot at, you know, the snapping of a bullet when it passes you. I don't think subsonic ammunition will do that anymore because if you know anything about firearms, subsonic ammunition does not break the sound barrier. So subsonic ammunition is going to be very scary now because you are not even going to know that you're getting shot at. So maybe this is actually a substantial buff to subsonic ammunition, or perhaps I'm completely misinterpreting this and I'm just totally wrong. We'll have to see. Moving on to the modes section of this patch note, a very interesting change for the Rush game mode. Attackers will no longer be able to see if defenders are defusing MCOMs through the displayed iconography, and defenders will be unable to see when attackers are arming the MCOM. For those of you that might not understand what they are talking about, when someone is arming the MCOM in Rush, as it currently stands right now, you can see a little icon pop up through the entire map that shows you as to whether or not someone is arming it or defusing it. And they are basically removing this because, quote, we want to encourage objective awareness rather than icon reliance. And I agree with this change, but to be honest with you, whenever I play Rush, my team doesn't seem to be able to understand if they're arming or disarming an MCOM anyway, even with the iconography, so we'll have to see how this plays out. Moving along to the gadget section, a massive buff to ammo and medical crates. Ammo crates now have a shared supply cooldown between other deployed ammo crates, on top of the fact that ammo and medical crates have had their cooldown reduced from 30 seconds to 16 seconds. They almost cut the cooldown in half, which is gigantic for uptime, obviously. And even on top of that, ammo crates will now resupply you every 15 seconds instead of every 20 seconds, and they will give you an extra magazine to both primary and secondary weapons. So huge buffs to ammo crates and medical crates there. As far as other gadgets go, the anti-tank grenade, they resolved an issue where the anti-tank grenade would simply not explode when it hit a vehicle. So yeah, that's probably really important that that is fixed. For C5, they fixed an issue where the C5 could actually bounce off of quickly moving vehicles and other pieces of C5 that you already placed on the vehicle. So just some quality of life things just to make your C5 actually do what you want it to do. Next up, some changes to some specific specialist gadgets. First of all, Irish's Shootdown Sentinel, his APS, could intercept the same projectile twice. This has been fixed. As far as RAW's concerned, they fixed an issue causing RAW's Cyber Warfare Protection device to continually switch between targets when aiming at vehicles, causing you to be unable to even lock onto a single vehicle that you intended to lock onto. Moving on to the weapons section, and I would argue this is the most important section of the entire patch notes, because not only do weapons receive all the attachments and some of the vault weapons get rebalanced, but this is the patch that adds basically a bunch of spread to SMGs and LMGs. You will now have to burst with SMGs and LMGs after this change goes live. Basically, they're doing the exact same thing they did to the ARs. So for starters, SMGs now have a higher starting spread, but their maximum spread and the rate at which it is reached is now comparable to ARs. So essentially, SMGs have higher starting spread, but their max spread is lower. So that makes sense. That definitely reels them in, because the PP Bison, you can kill people with that thing out to like 80 meters still. As for LMGs, the rate at which spread increases and the minimum spread while moving has been increased. So that's just like a blanket nerf to LMGs right there. LMGs, in my opinion, are probably the strongest weapon category in the game right now, because they're just 200 bullet assault rifles with no downsides. However, I am worried DICE will go overboard with some of these spread changes and make the guns just feel awful, because if you remember, bursting doesn't really feel that great in this game because it's just not snappy. It's not that responsive feeling. Moving on, though, to some further changes regarding spread while moving, they fixed an issue that was stopping spread penalties from being applied correctly while moving under specific circumstances, and on top of that, they fixed inconsistencies with the calculated weapon spread when the player is moving. Both of these changes are absolutely massive for gunplay and the feel of it, because if you ever felt as though bursting wasn't doing anything and you were moving, it very well could be that you were dealing with bugged spread reset and just bugged spread values because you're moving while shooting. And I don't know about you, but in a game where spread really matters, this really should have been fixed before they tried to implement bursting as a main gunplay mechanic. As far as the Vault SMGs go, they have had their spread and shooting behavior tuned to make them more consistent and viable against the base game weapons. And for you LMG prone lords, bipods are now more effective against spread and recoil on LMGs to compensate for the LMG spread changes I just mentioned. In general, DICE does have the correct idea with these spread changes. They want to reduce effective engagement distances. I am just worried that they might go overboard on some of the SMG spread changes, they might go overboard on some of the LMG spread changes, and in general, burst firing in this game just doesn't feel good at all. Now, moving on to some very important fixes in the vehicle section. For you jet players, the F-35, after using VTOL mode, they have fixed the rate roll, as well as the Su-57. They've also received some roll rate resolutions, say that 5 times fast. This should essentially just mean that I guess you can roll at a more consistent rate, or it just feels better. For you stealth helicopter enjoyers, radar missiles should no longer lock onto stealth helicopters or hit through flares at all. So that's great. You know, nothing should hit through flares. If I hit the countermeasure, it should counter the thing attacking me, right? And now to some absolutely massive quality of life changes to just simply exiting a vehicle at all, even if you're a passenger, if you're the driver. They have added directional exit to ground vehicles, allowing you to exit these vehicles from the direction you are looking at. This is how vehicles used to work in Battlefield, and it's how they should always work. And it's being added to the game right now, so that's good. They've also added directional exit points to the back of combat ground vehicles to allow you to exit behind the vehicle if you need to avoid, dying, or if you want extra cover. And finally, we are on the final change of this video. Again, if you enjoy the video, hit the like button and, of course, subscribe to the channel. If you watch this point, I really do appreciate it. And check out my Twitch, first link in the description. For the final change, they have fixed a long-standing issue that has resulted in a black screen being present when switching between zoom in and zoom out in vehicles. This bug has been plaguing every fucking tank player in the entire game since the launch of the game, and it was even in games such as Battlefield 4, and I believe at one point even in Battlefield 3. So DICE has a history of having this particular bug. Hopefully it is fixed for good, and you shouldn't ever see any sort of black screen appear when you're trying to switch between view modes on a tank ever again. That is going to wrap this video up. Thank you for watching. If you watched this point, again, thank you so much for that. Thank you for hitting 48,000 subs. Follow me on Twitch, join the Discord, follow me on Twitter, and of course, subscribe to the channel for everything Battlefield related and just FPS related in general, because any new FPS game that comes out, I'm at least going to make a video on it for my first impressions. So I'll see you guys later.